Welcome to the Speaking of Women's Health podcast. I'm your guest host, Lee Klecker, the producer of the podcast, and I'm happy to be back in the Sunflower House with a very special guest, Judy Barr. And on today's new episode, we are going to be talking about the benefits of yoga and how it can help with chronic pain. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Judy and her professional background. She is recently retired from Cleveland Clinic as lead yoga therapist and yoga program manager, and she helped to get their yoga program started and growing. Judy is a yoga therapist certified through the International Association of Yoga Therapists. She has over 40 years of yoga practice, including 10 years of practicing in her own studio before joining Cleveland Clinic. She came to yoga after her own chronic back pain led her to adapt yoga for her self-recovery and care. And we'll talk a little bit more about that throughout the interview. And she brought her approach to Cleveland Clinic and co-wrote a curriculum for a chronic disease reversal program called Lifestyle 180. Judy calls her approach heart-centered yoga, an inclusive practice that is accessible to everyone, including those who are not comfortable or capable of a traditional yoga class. Judy is recognized nationally. She has been a featured speaker at the International Association of Yoga Therapists, Integrative Medicine, and at women's health conferences. And she has shared, on Speaking of Women's Health on our website, many videos and articles that you can find. And Judy has been featured in Yoga Journal, the International Journal of Yoga Therapy, and Yoga Therapy Today. And I'm not done yet. She's on the advisory board for Yoga Therapy Today and yogatherapy.health. And she has released 2 yoga DVDs, one called Come As You Are Yoga, and the second one called Come As You Are Yoga in Nature. Welcome, Judy.
Hi, it's so exciting to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I thought it'd be nice to start the interview with you telling us a little bit about how you got into yoga and your story of spinal stenosis diagnosis.
Yes. Well, I was in my mid-40s at the time. Gee, I think that was only a couple years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Wink, 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 right? I was in my 40s and really active. I full-time career. I was also partly of what I was doing also is I've been a dancer, ballet dancer, and a performer and a choreographer. So I was really, really active. And I went to bed one night. I was fine. The next morning I woke up and I could barely walk. And it began an over a 5-year process of chronic pain. And so the idea of what I went through and being able to relate to what happens when we have chronic pain. Now, chronic pain is something that lasts at least it's longer than 3 months. You know, it's not acute where you sprain an ankle. Acute can lead to chronic pain, but mine turned out at first we thought it was acute, but then it lasted. So that started the process, the deteriorating process of, geez, I can't move very well. And it was really hard to believe because there I was active. I was, you know, I was teaching dance. I was choreographing. I was
Right.
really active, and just to be felled like that. And the, the stenosis ended up, as it was progressing, it would squeeze some of the nerves. And what would happen is I would be walking and all of a sudden I'd fall. Here
Wow.
I'm walking and try to be, I'm being graceful, right? And
Right.
kaplunk, there I go. So, I was walking with a cane, and it was just such a dichotomy of what it was like,
Right.
the getting diagnosed, and the depression, and the changing our lifestyle, and in order, geez, can I go grocery shopping? Because my back hurts so bad today that I can't go out. And so I really lived it. And I kept thinking, what is, this just can't be real. And
Right.
so I went the 3, 4, 5 years trying to find ways to help. And the last straw, or what I say the last straw, or the turning point for me, was when the neurosurgeon and the radiologist were basically standing over the gurney as I
Mm-hmm.
was being examined, and they said she has to have surgery. We have to do, we have to do the fusion. We have to do this, and then the radiologist was, no, but if you do that, and it's right, I can hear you.
Right. The patient's right here.
They're going back and forth and back and forth, and I appreciated what the radiologist was saying because, of course, with the history, and with all the experience the physicians have and all the data, this is what we see. But and certainly the side effects or the disadvantages of doing a particular surgery. But the radiologist said the rest of her back is going to go. You fuse, you see up and down. She's going to have problems, and then there'll be more and more and more, and it'll just continue to get worse. And I'm listening to this, and then I finally said, all right, stop, stop. I said, you know what? Give me a year, and I'm going to see what I can do to help myself. So in those 5 years, um, I, I, I think sometimes as patients, we don't realize how much we can take into our own hands. And so the experience for me was it was so valuable because it really helped to color how I worked and what I ended up wanting to do and literally change my careers for it. And so I said, give me a year. I'm going to work on this and see if I can make any changes. And the neurosurgeon was not happy with me. He was almost sneering. He said, oh, you're going to be begging me to come back for surgery. And I'm thinking, well, if I am, I'm not so sure I'm going here. And I'm sure it was a bad day. I mean, I'm not, trying not to take it out of context, but that was also quite a few years ago where there wasn't as much known about the whole body and what you can do and how much we can help ourselves with integrative
Yes.
and complementary type, practices.
Right.
So not long after that, my mom, and she was so cute because she would say, I'm the one that told you. She said, Judy, why don't you try yoga? And I had I had the idea that everybody thinks yoga has to be, you
Right.
know, a pretzel.
Right. Super flexible
Actually,
people. Right. Can only
yes,
do it
for
or yeah.
young people that could,
Yeah.
wear. And at that point, I still feel young and young at heart. But at that point, being in my 40s,
Or
2
young.
weeks before my
Mm-hmm.
back went out, I was performing, dancing. It was, I was still, quite vital. And she said, I think you should try yoga. And I said, okay, I will. And, but I couldn't find any yoga that I could do. I tried one of the big guys that, here's yoga for back care. And it was a DVD at the time, and I'm like, I can't do this,
Yeah.
because of what's going on with my back. And I tried something else, and I tried something else, and I thought, no wonder people think yoga isn't accessible. And so I sat back, and there was something inside me, and this is what's important for our patients too, is it just didn't feel right that my path, they told me if I didn't get that surgery in a year, I'd be in a wheelchair, that my back was going to deteriorate that bad. I was already walking with a cane. And I said, this just doesn't seem like it's what's supposed to happen to me.
Right.
So I began the process of self-teaching myself yoga, but making it very accessible and easy, breaking it down therapeutically, working on this and that and this and that. And I didn't have anybody telling me, hey, this is going to really help. You're
Yeah.
going to get better. I just, in my heart of hearts, I just thought, there's got to be something more I can do. I've got to take myself off that gurney and empower myself and do everything I can that's not harmful and not against what the doctor said. I didn't stop any of the medicines. I didn't do anything radical that way, but I took more of it into my own hands. And it took me a while. It was probably well over a year, but
Wow.
the rest is history. I did it. I
Wow.
was able to get back to, but how I did it was I looked at my stress levels. I watched and started eating more anti-inflammatory foods. I meditated. I walked. I looked at my social life. I made other changes because I also realized how much stress. I was in a really stressful job. I was actually in video production and I did corporate communications type work, but also video production, and it was really stressful. So I not only did the yoga, and here's the key: yoga helps us to become so mindful and aware of how we feel and what we're doing by just naturally we begin to look at the rest of our life and go, oh, that's really
Yes.
not fitting, or that doesn't feel right. And so that mindful approach the nervous system. So any
Yeah.
chronic pain that we're talking about, if we look at the mindful approach and the calming aspect of getting out of the sympathetic response into the parasympathetic, we're already practically halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a deep dive into yoga, the depths of it. And my mom was always so cute. She'd say, "And who told you to do yoga?"
Yeah.
Because
She's taking
because
all the
then
credit.
right, yeah. And I said, "Mom, you did absolutely." And for the longest time, she got me one of these little from I think it was Shopping Network, and it was a mat and a little this and a little that to help me get started. And she would come to my yoga classes when I taught the therapeutic yoga. And so I looked at it as a gift from the universe saying, you know what? If you can figure out how to do this, you can turn this around. And so I changed my career. I knew that I wanted to help other people because
Mm-hmm.
I felt so helpless and, so well helpless.
Yeah.
How do I do this? And so that whole process, and I studied and ultimately became a yoga therapist. And then I knew I needed to get into the bigger picture. I had a thriving business. It was called Heartlight, actually. And when the opportunity came the clinic came to me then because they knew I kind of had a local, a reputation of being able to help with chronic pain and all.
Yeah.
I thought, yep, this is where I have to go. I can reach more people.
Yes.
So here
That's
I am,
amazing. Yeah.
and almost 25 years later, that I'm
Wow. Wow.
still good.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. That's amazing. What a story. I mean, it
It's
just
pretty
tells
cool. Yeah.
it is. Yeah. I mean, because a lot of people, especially someone like you who was a dancer. So exercising and moving your body was your life. And then to one day wake up and then that all
Oh,
changes, and then you
it's
can't.
like it took my legs away from me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Well,
Well,
and I've been teaching yoga and dance now too.
oh,
So just to say that
yeah.
you just never know.
Yeah, I was a dancer, not like you. I'm never a great choreographer, but I went on to college and did a minor in dance. So I understand the
Oh,
importance of, yes. And my friend owns a yoga studio, got me into it. I have scoliosis, and so I've got uneven hips and all.
oh, yep,
Yes.
yep.
And wow, when I don't do yoga for, sometimes it gets tricky. I can see in my body, I could feel that pain. You can just, it really is.
You know what? And you're really smart to keep maintaining it, because what happens is, our body, whatever the twist is in your spine, and our body wants to go back to homeostasis, so it'll keep pulling. So you really, no matter what, have to you just keep
Right.
it up,
Yeah.
and you see it. I mean, and that's the
Yes.
key about mindfulness too, is that you realize, oh boy, I haven't done this for a while, and you listen to your body
Yes.
and then respond, because our body, pain many times is just a message from our body to say, hey, pay attention to this.
Right, right, absolutely. I mean, and you mentioned also just the benefits. Yes, of course, it helped obviously with your chronic pain and it can help others with pain, but it gives you a sense mentally, it makes you almost, at least me, I can't speak for everybody, but just a more positive person. I see things in a better light. I see people in a better light. I want to be better. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's the breathing or the instructor, but it really does make a difference for me in the type of person I am and who I want to be.
It can affect our well-being, and I think years ago, where yoga had gotten such a bad rap that it's culty and it's this and
Oh,
that,
yeah, yeah.
it's really more about positive thinking and noticing how we feel, and that mindful approach of, first I'm going to just be conscious of my breath. And if we're conscious of our breath in yoga class, we begin to, off the mat, realize, whoa, I'm holding my breath, I'm really upset here, I'm going to take another deep breath, and we're going to try to maintain, because the breath is everything. The physical aspect of it is certainly a byproduct because, and I'll get into that a little bit more about this, the style that we teach and all, but you're absolutely right. I believe everything in my life, I think, changed and improved when I began this practice because we talk about gratitude and patience and kindness and non-harm, being present, right? And those
Yes.
are wonderful things because in
Yes.
essence, it helps our well-being. And to our
Yeah.
mind, everything's real. And if we're ruminating about stuff and we're talking about this and we're mad about that and we're going around like that, guess what it sends, what messages it sends to our body? Stress hormones, and that the inflammatory rate starts, or I shouldn't say starts, but can get pushed up a little bit. So
Right.
you described that very well, and I'm very glad to hear that you're doing it.
Thank you. Yes. So I want to talk about, since we've already touched on many of these, the benefits of yoga. If you wouldn't mind sharing that with our audience. We talked about pain, so maybe other types of pain in addition to just a general chronic pain. What other conditions can be improved by doing yoga?
Okay, so to start out, again, is just, what is yoga?
Yeah.
And it's the combination of the mind, the body, and the breath, right? So many times people don't even realize that they just think of it as the physical posture. And so the physical posture absolutely helps. And in the accessible type of yoga, the heart-centered yoga that I do, it breaks down the muscle groups and works on, there's a lot of people that can't get on the ground. Well, how do we do a cobra or a sphinx that we can get a similar benefit without having to get on the ground? And maybe one day we work towards it.
Hmm.
So when we say mind, body, and breath, we're working the physical aspect. We're adding that wonderful breath that ultimately is what calms us. And yoga can, in the calming action, it can also restore. So we relax and slow down, but it also, I call it the ultimate green machine because it also then can energize us, right? But then it also works on our mind. Simple things. I'm doing a balancing pose, right? And I'm starting to say, we can. Oh, geez, I used to be able to do this all the time. Now look at me, I can't do this.
Yes.
And we notice our thoughts and realize, I'm not supporting myself. I'm not. I'm strong. I can do this. I'm strong. I can do this. So it does help the overall well-being. Now, any type of, so I'm going to say this. My friends and I, and my team members would say this too. You can breathe, you can do yoga. And so when we look in the magazines and we see somebody standing there with their foot behind and lifting, most people think there's no way I can do yoga. So we do the mind, we do the breath, but we also can adapt to the poses in a way that is accessible for anyone. So when I first started teaching at the clinic in 2007, there really wasn't a lot of solid NIH data that said yoga for back pain, yoga for this, yoga for that. There was plenty that would come from India, which is one of the origins of yoga, but that wasn't enough research for the United States and for our physicians, which is understandable. In these 20 years or so that I've started, there's all kinds of wonderful data. So carpal tunnel, high blood pressure, obesity, fibromyalgia, lupus, breast cancer. I mean, there's time and time again. As a matter of fact, our department was involved in 4 different studies while I was there, and it's still going on with epilepsy and the mind study. We did
Wow.
a virtual chronic pain, chronic lower back pain study, which we published, and we got very good results. So people with
Oh, that's
chronic
great.
pain that were employees of the clinic, it was that's how we said it was virtual. We got some really good results, and I can send a link
That
to
would be
that if
great.
anybody wants to read about that.
Yes, we could put
Um,
that in our show notes for our listeners because I know chronic lower back pain is a topic that at least we get a lot of questions about at Speaking of Women's Health.
Absolutely, I'll get that, and I'll address some of that as we're talking. So honestly, there really isn't anything that in one way or another, whether it's just the calming action or structurally we're able to balance the muscle groups, that yoga can't help. If we just overridingly look at yoga helps to lower our stress response
Mm-hmm.
as we practice it. And honestly, in 2007, when I was hired, there wasn't a lot of data yet.
Right.
And they said, and I worked with Dr. Michael Roizen, and Dr. Cosgrove was the CEO at the time, and not directly with Dr. Cosgrove, but he was also part and parcel to it. They said, you know what, there's enough data to show that yoga can help the stress response. We're bringing you on to help us, you know. And so when we talk about chronic pain, whether it's headaches or fibromyalgia or side effects of cancer or whatever it is, the very first thing we're going to look at is we're able to calm that response. And when we're in that parasympathetic response, we're not secreting the hormones that will exacerbate inflammation. And so
Mm-hmm.
the inflammatory rate in our body, not only it's stress, it's what we eat, you know, it's lack of motion, it's all. And what's so beautiful about yoga is we can meet you where you are. And too often a yoga class will be, all right, you're coming in and this is how you're going to do the poses versus we're going to wrap the yoga around you. We're not going to force you to hurt yourself or force yourself to do things. And with that, it's adaptable. I've taught amputees. I teach in wheelchairs. I've taught worked with patients in hospice, laying down, in bed,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it all can be done. The key, and I know we'll get to this, and I do want to talk about chronic back pain a little bit more too, specifically, is that you know as long as you find an instructor that knows how to do this. And so the difference between a yoga instructor and a yoga therapist is a lot more training and a lot more experience. So a yoga instructor has a basis of 200 hours, which is the minimum. A yoga alliance sets the certification for that. A yoga therapist needs easily 2 to 3,000 hours of training,
Okay.
and a lot of that is around not only training but experience within different disease processes.
Mm-hmm.
How can yoga help? How can yoga hurt? Right? Because no
Mm-hmm.
matter what, if you're trying to do something that's not good for you, whether it's with holding your breath, which is not good for most people,
Right.
or an average person, to doing things that could force and hurt a joint. So a yoga therapist has a lot more training and understands how to work yoga
Mm-hmm.
and support, not harm you any further, and also help you with the disease process. But there's plenty of really wonderfully seasoned yoga teachers out there that are not yoga therapists but have had so much hands-on experience that they're absolutely excellent. They could be considered that also because of their experience. So, of all the disease processes you've talked about, really almost really anybody can benefit, no matter what your challenge is. The key is going to be to find the right instructor
Mm-hmm.
to mold it around you. You
Right.
know,
I know I hear a lot of people say, friends, family, it's not for me. I just don't have the patience to start that breathing. But I think once you find, like you said, the right instructor or the right therapist, the right studio, or even the right like online platform, there's
right,
wonderful
right.
options now. Right. And that's great. I think you just, after like a couple weeks or a couple sessions, give it more than just one chance, is what I would say as a person who started it. And it was challenging at first. Like you mentioned the balance. I mean, and I was a dancer and I get in my head, I should be able to stand on one foot. I did. But you know what? Our bodies change. We get older, hormones, all of that. And you might not have the best balance, but who cares? Put your toe down, right? Or put your leg down and just focus maybe then on the breathing and get out of that negative headspace. And so I just wanted to mention like how you would you recommend somebody who is having some sort of pain to look for more of a therapist to get started if they've never done yoga before, or work with their physician maybe and finding
Well,
the right person?
we always, sorry to interrupt you, we always want to check with our physician. Is it okay? What can I do?
Hmm.
What can't I do? You know, knee replacement, hip replacement, abdominal surgery, back surgery, whatever it is. Obviously, we always check, um, what can I do? What can I not do? And there's, sometimes it's pretty general. Just don't lift, don't do this, don't do that. Um, So there's a website, which, I belong to International Association of Yoga Therapists, and there's a registration, there's a list there of therapists, yoga therapists that could most likely be in there. I mean, it's worldwide, so there would be a list there, recommendations from people for sure. And you're right, we have to give it a little bit of time because, well, and a savvy teacher, if they're starting a beginning class, they're not going to ask people to sit for 10 minutes quietly and don't move and then get them moving, because that's not possible. Our mind, we're used to multitasking easily, two or three things at once. And so somebody asks you to stop. First off, it's not going to work because you can still stay in here and you're going to all over the place and you're going, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. I don't care. It's working gradually into, you're moving, you're breathing, you quiet for a couple of seconds while you're in balance, you're moving, you're breathing, you're quiet, and you work towards that because we're multitasked. I mean, the day more technology came and there were two or three things on a screen at once was the day that all of us started even multitasking more and being able to do more. So you're right. It's hard. You don't want to give up. You want the teacher, the instructor, to be safe and knowledgeable and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into a class and, some of the things that you might ask is, this is important actually. Do they do hands-on adjustments?
Mm.
Um, I, I, we don't teach it. We don't say that that's a good thing to do, because if you're in a pose, let's say you're balancing or trying to balance, maybe there's a chair in front of you and trying to balance, and somebody comes up to you and says, and there's no mirror, you can't see, and they go, "Ugh." First off, it can scare you,
Yeah.
but we don't know what's going on inside that body. And so I prefer that, it's some of the things they ask. What's the experience of the teacher? Um, I have this particular injury or challenge.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think they would handle it? Um, no hands on. And, there's several styles, there's plenty of styles out there. Some of them are a lot more traditional, where there might be more of a chant,
Mm-hmm.
using sound, and that might be uncomfortable. So there's
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty of teachers that don't do that. Now, to explain what that is, think about when we're in church or when we're in a choir and we're singing. There's actually a vibration that goes on within our body with our vocal cords, and that can be actually really quite healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the basis of that in yoga is really about the vibration that happens. Doesn't There's plenty of classes that they don't do that. So for all of our listeners, don't worry about it. If something like that feels uncomfortable, there's plenty of instructors
Mm-hmm.
that don't do that to keep it even more user friendly. So, and then, finding out what their training is, and ask if you can try a class to see if you feel comfortable, and finding that line between my mind won't quiet, uncomfortable, versus this is not a class for me. This
Right.
is not where I want to. So it can be, it could take a little bit of time, but and we'll put those resources down, between the
Yes.
Yoga
Yes.
Alliance and IOYT. There's registration lists of instructors that are out there,
Mm-hmm. Great.
so that's worth a try.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So we started touching on the benefits, and I know you've mentioned how yoga can help reduce anxiety and stress, and we know a lot of women and men and teens, the stress and the anxiety in our everyday lives now can be a really problem for some. Sleep, I think yeah, and I know again, a lot of our audience is like midlife women, either in the perimenopause stage, menopause, or
Absolutely.
postmenopause. Yes, and sleep is a huge issue for many women, and again, and men.
Well, part of that is our mind, right? First off, we usually tell our doctor, and they make sure there's nothing, anything else physically disturbing that would cause a sleep problem. And sometimes it's a combination of the medicine. There might be a medicine that's on that's a side or a side effect of. But what yoga will help us do is notice our breath, quiet down. We have our bed ritual, our bedtime ritual. If there's something bothering us, maybe write it down, quiet music, staying, all the sleep hygiene type things, stay off our iPad and, as much as possible. But what I find is if my mind is going, I come to a breath. And this is the thing that's so cool is there's so many different ways to breathe that could suit us, suit our style and what we need to help to quiet us down, because what we're trying to do is not only calm that heart rate, but this. And so we begin to look at how we can quiet the mind to be able to sleep.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's
Oh,
so important. And
yeah.
how much we cut off, first off, we're so busy that we cut our amount of sleep down anyway. We go to bed later. We still have to get up early. So yes, there's beautiful poses. There's poses that will affect, that can wake us up. So what happens when we yawn? We go, "Rah!" Well, you know what? When we're opening our chest like that, that stimulates the sympathetic response. When we bend forward,
Hmm.
which there's a couple chunks in our cervical and a couple chunks in our lower back that will affect the parasympathetic response, the sleep response. So there's beautiful practices that can happen in the evening that you make it a little bit of a ritual. You bend forward and you do some stretches and things. So that can also help us. So sleep, you're
Yes.
so right. And there's so many challenges with it. But I'll tell you, with practice, you can really affect your sleep with
Oh yeah,
yoga.
after a good yoga session, I can't stay awake past like 9:30. My kids are like, "What's?" I'm like, "Mom did yoga today." So the breathing for me, I don't know it, but it really does help. I could say that again personally. And what about weight loss? And just
Oh,
the
that's
physical
good.
part, right?
Yeah, that's a good part. So yes, and we were talking a little bit about the cardiovascular effects.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
um, the biggest effect that yoga can have for weight loss, the first and the foremost, I believe, is your own body awareness, which helps you understand your hunger, when you're satiated,
Mm-hmm.
when you're thirsty, when you're stressed eating. So it's there's almost that idea that overlaps into understanding the reasons why am I eating Twinkies at 10 o'clock at night?
Yes.
You know, that awareness. Um, Yoga helps our circulation. It affects our heart rate. Um, we can work and strengthen bones, osteopenia, osteoporosis. Although with both osteopenia and osteoporosis and weight, there's always a suggestion that you need more than just yoga. Yoga will support it. There's certainly people out there that do the power yoga where you're in a hot room and it's fast paced, move, move, move. So yes, of course there's cardiovascular. That's not for everybody. And when we move fast, our muscles, they don't even get into position and you tell them to move again and they're like, ah. And
Mm,
so we actually can hurt ourselves, right?
yeah.
So I I believe that the mindful approach and really listening to our body and understanding when we go to eat and why we want to take better care of ourselves. So I think with the actual physical activity of yoga, it helps because it keeps us supple. It helps us with our balance. It helps us to feel better. But we don't necessarily burn a lot of calories like we would if we did a brisk 45-minute walk,
Okay.
or we did resistance training. So I think it's a good adjunct and a support. Um,
Okay.
it,
And
it
and
really
if
to
you're
support.
doing
Yeah.
some of the poses, that where you're pushing up and you're using your arms, almost like, would you consider that a little bit of strength training?
Oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, okay,
Yes. Absolutely. And there's plenty of ways. We use gravity, right, as resistance. So even when I do a therapeutic class, which a lot of times we'll sit on the chair, and by the way, you wouldn't believe all the wonderful things and the benefits we can get even from sitting on a chair, because we can get deeper into muscles and strengthen. So absolutely, there's strength training. So it's training, I guess, but there's strength advantages. Absolutely. If we can hold, let's say, a warrior pose, the warrior poses out, you're in a lunge and you're looking out. If we can hold that about 90 seconds, there's data about osteopenia and osteoporosis that we're we're wrapped, the muscles are getting wrapped. It's an active pose. It's like it's not, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really active. We're
Mm-hmm.
using the muscle. And if we hold it 90 seconds, we're not only wrapping the muscle around, but we're getting into the hips and using that more. So I would say it's perfect. We're going to be, the Wellness Integrative is looking at doing I think they were talking about a shared medical appointment, about the strength of yoga to help our bones. So in that respect, we really can. I think it still would be nice to use free weights,
Mm-hmm.
and as an adjunct to what we do, but with a well-rounded and a consistent practice, you absolutely can do strengthening thighs, even seated. You sit up, you use your core, and that's one thing I want to remind all of our viewers is to watch your posture. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
so easy
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah,
let that
it
happen.
is. Yes.
And lack of motion. Our beautiful body, if we keep going like that, over time our bones say, well, I guess that's what we're going to have to stabilize her up this way because she hasn't moved it any different for a long time.
Yes.
it
Yeah.
it actually it actually can get
Become
we
like a
can
permanent
cause,
posture almost, right?
yes, I didn't want to say damage, but
Yeah.
what happens is it can become more permanent because the
Yes.
bones move it, instead of just all muscle.
Yes. Interesting. I mean, and I don't know, maybe it's the old dancer in me, but I do, I notice a lot of people, you're walking just, in a grocery store. A lot of people have that. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, yeah.
Well,
And that's,
it's like depression, and it's
yeah.
gravity, and it's this, and it's this,
Yes.
and watch this.
Yes.
Look at how much, and look what the rotator cuff. I
Right.
mean, look at how far that
Yeah.
had to go.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Holy cow! It is
Yeah.
so easy. It is
Right.
so easy.
I remember even my dance teacher saying, a good way to kind of do it is put your shoulders up, push them down, and feel those back muscles, right? Kind of just working, and but it takes some work to get used to that, especially if you've always kind of been a huncher, to really get to change that posture and to change the way that you sit and stand, and but it really can
And
do wonders.
oh, it does, and it strengthens us. So if we're sitting on the back of our chair, we're not using any muscle.
Yeah,
So if we sit up, we have to use our core.
right, right,
I have to use my whole back and my stomach to just sit up straight,
right.
all the way up. So just everyday hits like that.
Right. And I do want to have you, if you have a few minutes, to show us a
Yes.
few at home. But before we do, I want to, again, for a lot of the, people who are new to yoga or have maybe only tried it like at their local Y or one time a DVD or at home. But what are a few of the different types and ones that maybe you would
Uh,
recommend for either beginners or those who've only done it, a few times here and there throughout their life?
um, Generally, as I find, is, and I'm so sorry for some of the studio owners that might see this that may take exception to it, but I generally find yoga studio, out in the strip center, and tends to be a little bit, maybe a little bit less accessible for someone new or average coming in, unless you're young, in pretty darn good shape, you can step in. So let's say the demographics that we're talking about might be maybe mid 30s up, and maybe not quite as in shape as we'd like. And I'm not even talking if it's weight, but just maybe not having a chance to move much. But if it is weight, or if there is other challenges, generally, like, you'll hear it of vinyasa flow, or or power yoga. Those I think tend to be something that you might work towards. They're not accessible for everybody, so it would be watching for the instructor that that teaches it, but and again also that style. So, and most people don't differentiate this, but a good roundabout style is called hatha, or it's actually said
Okay.
hatha, Hatha. It's
Okay.
the basic yoga. It combines the meditation, the breath, and the movement, and that's the umbrella. And
Okay.
so beginning, right? I call mine therapeutic, or have called it therapeutic or wellness. Um, the style that I developed after I realized how inaccessible an average yoga class was I took the poses and broke them down. So, Cobra is laying on the ground and pushing up. It's actually done in physical therapy too. But what if we did, let's say we wanted to make it accessible. So here's my chair.
Mm-hmm.
What if by pulling back and leaning forward, I'm able to open up the chest and stretch everything down to the waist, and then I do some other stretches to work the bottom part of it. So it's breaking down the poses to make it accessible, get the benefit of it, and then eventually being able to put it together. So um, look for the simplest and basic descriptions of the yoga, and then ask those questions. Do I necessarily have to get on the ground right off the bat? I mean, there's people in their 30s that have a hard time lifting their arms or even getting on the ground because of
Yeah.
lack of motion.
Right.
So it isn't just an active older adult kind of a situation that we're dealing with here. So, and if you do that class won't necessarily be for them.
Right.
So like the Rocky River Rec Center and the city's rec centers and um, places like that sometimes can have really wonderful
Yeah.
classes.
Yeah, my mom, who's has, arthritis, osteoarthritis, joint pain in her knees and her toes, which is again very, very common, even in women in their 30s, 40s, 50s. She tried the studios and it was too much for her, and she felt almost embarrassed because all these young girls were in their cute little outfits, and my mom's like, I just need some pain relief and some good stretching, and I just
Yeah,
want, right, as part of her other things she was doing in her exercise program. But she found a great class at her local Y. So she tried. She kept trying different places, and she found what worked for her. And I've
that's a
noticed.
good.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I have a app on my TV that I've installed that I like, and it has a dot, one for like easy, two dots for
Oh, yep.
yes, and that's helpful too. So just look for maybe that one dot or beginner level or entry level.
That's a very good suggestion. The cool part about doing an in-person class is that the teacher can watch and gauges, to what's going on, but it isn't always practical. And it can help you. Sometimes we're not quite as body aware. And, I'll say stand up straight, and they don't really understand what stand up straight is enough, and so I can see it and ask them. But, the fact is if we just get moving and just get that practice, that mindful practice, anything will help as long as it doesn't hurt you, right? And people ask, well, how often do I do it, and what's a good, what the best thing is what's convenient for you. Maybe you love to start the day in it, maybe you like to end the day, maybe breaking it up, having a little chunk that we have as our own, where it could be 15 minutes that we put on pretty music and nice, and we do a little bit on our own, then take a nice bath. Wouldn't that be a wonderful evening?
Sounds great.
Yeah, it does. But to really look at it as what such a wonderful self-care, that I'm taking care of myself in doing that, and that in of itself, the meditation part of yoga, or just meditation period, is really just a single-minded focus. It's being able to be aware that my mind's going, oop, okay, I'm going to bring it back here and focus on my breath, or listen to this music. Oop, my mind's going, okay, I'm bringing it back. And so yoga can be a mindful meditation. In other words, it's a moving meditation, which can also, which can really calm us. So for for our um, for our listeners, or our viewers,
Hmm.
do what fits your lifestyle. Don't force. Um, Yoga should never hurt. It should never hurt. With chronic pain, especially, we want to discern the difference between I haven't moved this muscle for a while versus shooting knife edge, numbing pain. And we should never, ever feel pain in the joints. So if you have a knee pain, or if you have a deep hip pain, you stop. And a beautiful yoga class allows you and gives you that freedom to listen to your body and stop and adjust it and adapt it, because this is not a race, and nothing is ever worth hurting yourself. It's just never, it's not worth it
Yeah.
to try
That's
to do something that doesn't fit right, you know?
right. That's wonderful advice. Yeah, that's great. So, do you mind showing us a
Oh,
few at home?
not at all.
And so
I'm gonna
maybe adjust your camera there.
yeah, I'm gonna adjust this a little bit so that we can see me here. Hold on.
And so I see you're going to use your chair.
Yeah, I
Help
think
you.
so.
Okay.
If at the desk, or the thing is, and I'll show you a couple, a couple things that really make a difference when we're sitting on our chair and practicing sitting up tall. We'll talk about a mountain pose real quickly too, but
Okay.
let's let's scooch up nice
Okay.
and tall, right? So I'm I'm going to have lots of space behind me. Put your feet under your knees and your shoulders under your hips, and let's just let your hands drop. So just shake these out a little bit. So get into your wrists and get into your thumbs. So starting to get circulation going,
Hmm.
elbows and then shoulders a little bit, right? And then put your hands back and shake a leg. So your ankle, your knee, and move your leg side to side. Now we're starting to get a little core here, right? And then shake the other side because you're leaning back. We're getting circulation going. Now sit up straight, tap your feet a little bit, and then just place your feet down and see if you could feel it a little tingly. Mindful awareness, right, of noticing. Let's just look one direction and the other. Nice big breath in, looking one way, and a big breath out, looking the other. Keep that chin parallel.
And do we need to breathe through our nose or our mouths, or does it matter? Whatever feels
Good
good.
question. Good question. Breathing in and out of the nose is the natural
Okay.
breath, right? It it filters, it kind of adds humidity to it, but exhaling through the mouth helps us to relax. So let's try something. We'll get back to the head in a second. Let's everybody take a big breath in, exhale with a sigh. Ah, as much as you can. Take in as much air and exhale with a sigh. Ah, now do another breath in normal in and out of the nose. That alone can be something to
Yeah.
just calm you during the day.
Yeah.
So let's inhale through the nose and then exhale looking the other way. Do one more. Come back to neutral. Just drop your chin and let the weight of your head stretch your neck, and then bring it up and just look up. So again, as we're practicing our breath. Don't look up too high. Just look up to the wall. So the reason I'm going to say that is our cervical is very delicate, and if we drop our head back, we're clunking it. We're crunching that very delicate cervical
I did hear a
spine.
little something there when I did that. Yeah.
Well, a pops are okay, and
Okay.
in as long as there's no pain with it.
Yeah.
But why chance it? This
Right.
way, when we're doing this, we're also suspending the neck in space and strengthening it.
Hmm.
Okay, let's come back. Just circle your head just a little bit. I just heard a ding. I don't know. Was that me dinging?
I don't
I don't know
know.
what that. I don't know what that was.
I don't know either.
I'm looking at you. You're looking at me. I have no idea where that came from.
Just
All right.
enjoying my yoga right now.
Yeah. All right. Let's do our circle. Yeah. I'm all for that. Just soften. So this is to get more circulation, more glide. Now let's pull the shoulder forward. Oh, that feels good. Can you feel your shoulder blade pulling away from the spine? Good. And then just up and down. We think of shouldering responsibility,
Oh,
go back and
yeah.
forth again, and how much we're handling in our life. All right, let's do a cat curl. So we soften this a little bit. So a cat curl is the convex concave of rolling, looking down towards your belly button, and then coming up and pulling your shoulders back. I say it's like giving a smooch, mwah, like that,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
All right, and then curl and roll. So we're not only softening the muscles along the spine. We're getting a little bit more going with our the spinal fluid, and maybe creating a little bit of space there for between the vertebrae as we do this.
I would imagine this would be good for, I mean, lower back, obviously, to kind of get that
Yep,
stretch. I remember when I was pregnant, I had a lot of back pain, and the PT had me do the cat
with the
cow
cat
pose.
curl.
Yeah, as part of
Yeah,
my,
that's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
And as we move like this, we're also moving in our hip socket. So if we just do this, we're moving the spine. But if we roll back a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and then forward, we're
Mm-hmm.
moving in our hip socket here.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. All right, let's do a spinal twist. So 6 directions of the spine are really something good to do every day. So 6 directions. We've just done 2 directions, right? It's 2 directions the spine can move. Now we'll do a spinal twist. Lengthen up and twist one direction. Now, don't lean back. Keep your shoulders parallel. We want to be tall and create space and just give it a little twist. Lengthen up, big inhale, and exhale. Now, what's going on in your body? Does one side feel a little bit tighter? And again, we just notice with curious awareness. We don't judge. Shoulders down, big inhale, big exhale. Oh, that feels good. And let's come around again. Remember, never force, and discern the difference between this is tight versus holy cow, this really hurts. Big breath in, looking over your shoulder, inhale and exhale. And maybe a pop is okay as long as there's no pain with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just air in a joint. All right, come back. And so we just did 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 directions of the spine. Now side bend, 5, 6, right? An arm can be up or it can be down, but let's all go that direction. So lengthen up, over. Now keep the shoulder back so it's definitely a lateral stretch. So how does this feel on your back? Have you done any of your stretches in the past day or two? Don't want to put you on the spot, but
No, yeah. I
let's
did
go to
Pilates. I do a bar Pilates class as well to kind of get the little dancer in me. I miss that. And we do a lot of side stuff, and it feels so good when I can stretch my
I
side.
bet.
Oh, it's just
Feel
this
these ribs.
relief, right? Right here for me. Yeah,
Oh,
I
that
know.
quadrant is really hard for all of us to get. And then especially if you do have a bit of a curvature, let's do the other side. I'll show it without the arm. So you
Okay.
don't have to use the arm, but the arm adds a little more weight to the fulcrum. So up you go, and then feel this stretch on the side. And let that head hang too, because that'll give you the sternocleidomastoid
Oh,
at the
yeah.
side of the neck can
I
get a
feel
nice
that
stretch.
right in here. Yeah. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
when you're sitting there at work, I mean, this would be perfect just to kind of relieve some of that stress and that tightness.
Less is more, and let's open our legs if it feels comfortable for you. This is pelvic floor, this is groin, it's lower back, it's hips. This simple motion alone makes such a difference. Put your hands on your legs, shoulders down and back, press into your feet, and then just a slight lean. So the weight of our hands is stretching our hips, our groin, our back. Were we to take our hands off, we'd have to pull our tummy in because we're suspended in space to strengthen our back, right? So big breath in, exhale, and come back and just twist. Sitting tall now, going one direction and then the other. You can push into the leg to go a little further if you want, and around. So just think, these simple motions done mindfully can make such a difference.
Right.
Now push into this leg. So we're going to push, lean, and twist
I
here.
see.
This is
Hmm.
lower, and this gets into the lower back.
Hmm.
So basically, the little dot on our back is the sacral joint, and it does not have a lot of range of motion, but it can get jammed up, especially if we sit crooked.
Yeah.
Take a big breath in. So a lot of times we'll sit and our sacrum will curl like that, and we're putting so much pressure on the ligaments. Let's do the other side. Big breath in and look around. So the more you lean forward and the more you twist, the deeper it is. So it's up to you.
Oh, yeah. I
And
feel
that's
it.
yeah, it feels good, doesn't it?
I'm out of the
And then
screen. I can feel it. I'm getting so.
yeah, I can still hear you though. It's good. It's so cool to have someone interview me that understands and practices yoga. You bring up such wonderful points and such good questions.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I wish I could
Let's
even do
connect.
it more, especially going to the studio. I do enjoy an instructor.
I
Um,
know.
yeah,
But
there's such a big difference in me doing it at home compared to going to somewhere.
I I think we work a little harder maybe.
Oh,
It
yeah.
probably depends. Let's do one more. Just drop the knee like this. And so what we're doing is getting range of motion in the hip. So you see the basics poses, and this doesn't have to be people that just are can't move at all. Any of us, any of our
Hmm.
age groups, these motions will make such a difference. Let's go the other way. And you know what? Do you know that the immune system doesn't have its own pump, right? Our heart has a pump, but our immune system needs our muscles and needs motion to move, to pump
Hmm.
the lymphatic fluid to filter through the lymph nodes. So the more we're able to move, the better. Let's lean back and sit up straight. Let's come to the back of the chair and let's just focus on our breath for a few moments. All right, so shoulders are back, your spine is nice and long. Let's turn your palms up to just be open, and let's just first, closing your eyes, just notice how you feel. What does your body feel like? What does your mind feel like? And your body. Then focus. Let's take three breaths in through your nose as deep as you can and out through your nose. And I love this saying by Thich Nhat Hanh as you do this. He's a Tibetan monk. Mindfulness, right? Breathing in, I calm my body. And breathing out, I smile. And dwelling in this present moment, I know it is a wonderful moment.
And so for our listeners who are maybe not watching us, which I just, kind of forgot about you out there, and I'm so sorry. I'm enjoying Judy's yoga so much. But I encourage you to please watch this episode because she has just shared so many wonderful at-home yoga poses that are great for, certain just stretching, stress, a little bit of pain, but sort of got a little too engaged there with our our session. But I
Well,
wanted
it's easy to do when we see
yes,
ourselves and realize that some are not. But you're
yeah,
right, they can. So I'm glad you thought of it.
yeah. But thank you, Judy. I mean, before we wrap up our interview, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any other tips or any other insight you may have?
Well, I think you said it really well when you said, try it. When you find someplace, try it and give it a couple times. Give it more than once or twice. As humans, we kind of prejudge that this is going to work and then it's not. Give it, and I'll tell you that it changed my life. And the thing is, I'm soon to be 74, right? I'm
Wow, you do
73.
not look it. You look
Like you, of
amazing.
course, us girls don't mind hearing that. But my back problem happened when I was 45, and here I am. And I teach about 12 classes a week now myself, even being retired, and I'm proof that it can work and it feels good. And I think for me, it changed my life because it changes how I've approached things, and I appreciate some of the simplest pleasures. So make a pact with yourself to count your blessings and take a moment and just really taste your tea or coffee or your blueberries and appreciate the moment that you lay in the bed and feel the coolness of the sheets, or just take a couple moments, and those simple pleasures add up, and that simple awareness adds up during the course of the day, and it can really change your life no matter how rough things can be.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Perfectly said. Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Judy, for joining us on this new Speaking of Women's Health podcast. You are welcome. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in for another new episode. And we are grateful for your support as well, and hope you will continue to join us. And to catch all the latest from the Speaking of Women's Health podcast, subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you all next time in the Sunflower House. Be strong, be healthy, and be in charge.